And we're back to continue the topic real quick about The Undertaker, and then we'll move on to the more of the CM Punk, Chris Jericho, and some of the other matches that will be appearing at WrestleMania. In my mind, don't get me wrong. I think, like Chronic said earlier, that Undertaker was good in his time. Going 20, going last year, going 19-0, and everything. The guy doesn't have very much left, and the way that they're utilizing him now, I think, in my mind, how I think of it as more of a wrestling fan's point of view, where they're paying Undertaker to appear several times prior to WrestleMania, to where they can invest that money that they're investing in Undertaker to come back every few months or so, or every couple of weeks, to push the WrestleMania feud with Triple H. I think that's something that they could be investing time and money into. Someone from FCW. There's so
Well,
many good guys down there at FCW. I mean, Eddie
well,
Guerrero's daughter down there.
well, the issue is Eddie Guerrero's daughter's not going to fill, you know,
But I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. What I'm just
the
talking
arena.
about is just the fact is, as thinking as a wrestling fan and not as a quote unquote businessman. Saying as, if you're gonna invest time, like as much time as they're giving Undertaker and Triple H on the mic and in the ring, that could be going to many of the different matches spread out throughout the night, or the money that they're investing bringing the Undertaker back and wrestling these appearances, and showing up at these appearances and having these in-ring promos. That's time that could be invested in somebody else, that could be brought up from FCW, or more time invested into NXT.
Well, honestly, at the end of the day, and you do have to look at it from the business perspective, because that's why WWE makes the decisions that they do, because they are a business. They are the global leader in sports entertainment. And at the end of the day, it comes down to The Undertaker's a draw. I would pay just to see The Undertaker wrestle once a year, and I would probably pay for just that match. But some fans are different than other fans, and that's, what makes this YWC community. That's what makes YouTube. That's what makes the United States so great, is we all can voice our own opinions. If
Yes.
we were all the same, it would be awfully bland. But I'm gonna enjoy seeing the Undertaker. I like it. Some fans don't, but let's not dwell on it. Let's
Yeah.
move on to the next match. Let's go into
Before that, I definitely, in my mind, I want to see 19-1. I don't want to see 20-0 anymore. I don't want to see 21-0. I don't want to see 22-0. I want to see
But you don't
19-1.
want Triple H beating the Undertaker, right?
To be honest, at this point in time, how many more WrestleManias are we going to get out of the Undertaker? You know what I mean?
Well, you were talking about younger stars. Like,
Yeah.
are you trying to make the point that maybe they should have built up a star over the past year from FCW or something like that? Some guy that they really believed in to beat the Undertaker?
No, not to beat the Undertaker. What I'm just trying to say is, though, I mean, they keep bringing Taker back right before, like a month before WrestleMania, and just the money that they're investing in having the Undertaker coming back, I think that money should be invested in some other, some other talent, because what you're,
Okay, I
you know what I
understand.
mean. But I mean, there was rumors last year, and I was super hyped for this when I heard it, that going into WrestleMania 27, the current storyline before they decided to give the match to Triple H, they actually were very high on Wade Barrett and wanted Wade Barrett. And Undertaker even personally said it himself, that he selected Wade Barrett if the streak was going to end, that he would be the one to end it, because he sees great promise in Wade Barrett's future. Now, in my mind, as a Wade Barrett fan, I would love to see that. But the thing is, like I said, it all becomes to how many more WrestleManias Undertaker have left in him.
to be honest, though, I mean, to a fan like myself that watched this since I was a small child and followed The Undertaker for so long, I almost think that would be the point, that a lot of wrestling fans would become disenchanted with the WWE. I mean, Chronix, what's your take on it? I mean, honestly, if Hunter did beat The Undertaker, we went 19-1. Don't you feel like that would just kind of destroy the whole mysticism that The Undertaker has held for the last 20 years?
Well, okay, on that point, not exactly, because it's not like anybody's going to forget about The Undertaker. If Triple H was to beat him, which I totally don't believe at all, not for 1 second, but if it was the case, I think it would be okay if Triple H goes as the heel and becomes the Vince McMahon, and, he wrestles every once in a while, CM Punk, because, CM Punk is, if you're going to put it in perspective, you had Vince McMahon versus Stone Cold, and then Triple H just became the big heel, became Vince McMahon, and stayed that way until 10 years from now. But I don't think they're going to do that. I wish that they would, if that was the case. And speaking on somebody like Wade Barrett beating The Undertaker, the thing with that is you have to make sure that one, that they're good enough to stay, and two, that they'll stay. Because the last thing you want is Wade Barrett to beat The Undertaker, and 18 months from now, the dude is TNA World Champion. You gotta lock those guys down for like 10 or 15 years, because having bragging rights like that is the worst thing. That's almost like going and taking the championship to another company and dropping it in the trash. The Undertaker streak is very important.
That's like when, perfect example, that's like when Hogan passed the torch to Rock in 2002, 2003, and then we see Rock leave the company. I mean, that was huge.
And then basically both of them were gone in no time at all.
And imagine if they did put the match that Stone Cold Steve Austin wanted. If they did put Stone Cold versus Hogan and let Stone Cold get over on Hogan, Stone Cold would have never walked out the company, and we would have had a completely different 2002 in the WWE.
Yes. And it's, like I said, I mean, I take nothing away from The Undertaker and what he's done. His streak will be phenomenal. I mean, that streak will live. Well, the history of his streak going 19-0 at the moment will live on for legend. I mean, that's just like how the only one Iron Man match that was the best hands down in history was Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 12, Arrowhead Pond. Just like how the greatest Hell in a Cell match was against Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker. There's a lot of,
No. The greatest Hell in a Cell match was definitely...
No, the first one is always better than the second one.
No. Mick Foley went off the top of the cage,
the only thing that
ended up with a tooth in his nose.
The only thing that made that match epic, and I'm sorry, I don't want to I'm not taking anything away from
the
Foley,
sheer brutality.
But the fact is, the only reason why that match is most remembered is because he got thrown off the top of the cell and got choke slammed to the top of the cell. If you didn't have those two spots,
I agree with that. Because if you look at it, and look,
Shawn Michaels got his ass
and I like that match and everything, but that match, if you look at it, the dude went up the cage, he fell off. He went to the back, he couldn't compete, he came back, he got chokeslammed through the deal, tombstone thumbtacks in the match. There was no psychology. It was, he almost died, but he's still alive, and then he lost.
I agree with what you're saying. There was no technical wrestling aspect to it. It was a couple brutal spots, and it was over. I kind of do agree with what you're saying, that within the Shawn Michaels match, we did see a lot more technical spots, and even arguably, when Cactus Jack faced Triple H at No Way Out 2000.
That was a lot.
That was great.
That wasn't a bad match at all. That was actually right here in Connecticut, the Hartford Civic Center. I remember sitting home watching it on pay-per-view.
We wish we could be there.
Wishing I was there. Yeah, I mean, totally.
But, just to wrap this up, there's never been a streak in sports entertainment like Undertaker's WrestleMania streak. I mean, you've never heard of a baseball team going 19-0 in the World Series. You've never seen an NFL team going 19-0 in the Super Bowl.
Well, honestly, if they are going to put The Undertaker away, they would have to do it this year. Triple H would just have to put him away, and HBK would somehow have to be involved. But the way this wrestling fan wants to see it, Undertaker needs to get past it. He needs to defeat Triple H. He needs to somehow work past whatever role HBK is going to play in this match. He needs to go 20-0, and maybe 20-0 is the end. Maybe he goes one or two more matches. But I would just hate to see it end here. That's just this fan's opinion that's watched him for so long. I'm a huge Triple H fan. When I buy the new wrestling games, Triple H is usually the first guy I play. So I'm not even going to lie. Yeah. But, I mean...
If we see the streak end, we might see it this year. We might not. But it cannot go 21-0. It would have to end next year.
I don't want to see it end with a screw job. Real quick, Chronix. What do you think about Shawn Michaels' factor in this match? It possibly ending with some sort of screw job, either Undertaker or Triple H getting screwed over.
Well, I think it just makes it more interesting because, you look at all the wrestling fans, when they first announced the match, everybody was just groaning, just like collective sigh, like, oh, not this again. And then they started
I was probably the only one who wanted it.
It at least makes the match interesting. The way I see it, I just look at Shawn Michaels. He's just looking dead straight in Undertaker's eyes, staring at him as he counts 1, 2, 3. Shawn Michaels does the right thing because that's what he would do. And, Undertaker's a respectable individual, and Triple H is, the one that's trying to get the screw job. And I don't think, that Shawn Michaels, the way he is now, would do some kind of screw finish. Because, I mean, where does that put Shawn Michaels after that? I mean, the dude's in the Hall of Fame.
Exactly.
The dude's done with wrestling. He's got to do the respectable thing in my mind.
What I find before we close up part two, what I find in my mind and how I see it is that basically how Undertaker was throwing Shawn around verbally in the ring last week, no, this past Monday night I believe it was. He said if the match doesn't end pure, there's gonna be hell to pay, and he was basically trying to basically bully Shawn around the ring verbally, and then you hear Shawn say, "I find it ironic
he
that."
wasn't bullying him. He was straight up threatening him.
He basically, Shawn was like, "Isn't it ironic that I could be the person whose career you ended, could possibly the one that ends your streak at WrestleMania because I have the power to count to 3." And basically, I kind of, that right there kind of clicked as we could probably see Shawn Michaels a screw job, but that we might not. We might see a double cross at the end, and you know what I mean? So, guys, please stay tuned for part 3.